Hey y'all, hi. So I went to Sephora in person. I've been feeling like it's two things actually. One, I've been feeling like all of the skincare and makeup that I've been reviewing, using even, but more to the point, reviewing on camera is stuff that's been sent to me by brands. So I've been having that feeling lately like my content is really being directed by those chance encounters, like what brands happen to send me, and not being directed by my own personal interest in what makeup is new to the market or what makeup is even on the market. Just like this question of what I would be the most curious to try or what I would be naturally drawn to, and then whether that ends up being good makeup or not when I review it on camera. That question has kind of been going unanswered. And then the other thing is that I've really lost touch with browsing makeup in person, like going physically to the store. Until recently, when I went with my friend Stephanie, like a couple of months ago, it had been months. Could it have even possibly been years? It might even have been years since I was in a Sephora, just poking around, seeing what things looked like in person. I've become so much an online makeup consumer, like an online makeup shopper. I think there's really something to be gained for us from me going physically to Sephora, seeing what interests me, seeing what calls to me, and then trying it on camera. Simply that is what we are doing today. In spite of all that's troubling in the world, in spite of all the stress, in spite of the weirdness of it being the very end of the year, we're going to sit here and take a minute and do that. If this is your first time to my channel, I hope you'll subscribe if you like it and or check out my book, which I'll link at the top of the description box down below. And now let's get into the meat of the video. Okay, before I go a moment longer, I need to put this on my lips. This was actually on my desires list. It was something that I was looking for at the Sephora. I didn't know if they would have it. It would be in store yet, but it was. It's the Henriksen Pout Preserve Peptide Lip Treatment, but it's the sparkly one, which is new. Creme Brulee Glimmer. I have the non-sparkly original, kind of milky orange one, which is in a creamsicle scent, and I love it because it's so thick. It's really thick. It sticks to the lips in a thick sealing layer. It's really nourishing. It's just the formula, it's beefy. And you know, I love a beefy formula for a lip treatment. I mean, maybe you don't know, but you know, now you know. Maybe you didn't know, but now you know. However, I'm a little bit disappointed in this. I really love that one because the creamsicle one, because it feels like such good skincare for the lips. This has the same amount of thickness. It's just as beefy. It's definitely present, but there's so much kind of working against what the other one has for it. One is the scent, the flavor. It's sort of like a coconut. It says it's creme brulee, but it's really just like, it's like a scented, it's like if Polly Pocket had a scent. It's like a scented doll, you know, a little bit fakey coconut vanilla. I don't think they really pulled it off. Whereas the creamsicle one, that's so innovative. It's such an unusual, comforting scent for a lip balm. And this, it's not giving me what I want. The color, it's very clear. It's very sheer. I don't mind the glimmer. I actually kind of like the look. It's a little bit, maybe a little bit orange, but it's so clear that it's fine. But weirdly, I would have liked for it to have a little more color, but for it to be darker and browner. The color is just not, it's not doing anything more than adding a little bit of shine. And then it's really, really sheer and clear, and it has that sparkle. It feels to me like a lip gloss. It really feels like a makeup product, like a lip gloss. And I love lip treatments that really make me feel like it's a lip balm that happens to look really juicy and beautiful and or happens to have some pigment in it and be a makeup product too on the side. This feels like a lip gloss in a tube. I think it's mostly the smell that's giving me that impression. It's mostly the smell that's making me feel, it just doesn't feel high value. It feels a little icky. However, I'll keep it around. Time will tell. It's like the other one, the creamsicle one. I love putting it on before I go to bed at night and sleeping in it. And I would never do that with this. It just feels too much like makeup. Weird. So that is something that I was aware of that was new to the market that I was hoping would be at Sephora that I went looking for and I found. This is something that is much more the kind of thing that I was hoping I would end up stumbling across by going physically into a Sephora myself and looking around for interesting things to review. I have, by the way, a budget. The business of the YouTube channel that you're watching right now is a business, and the business has a budget for review products. So that was what I was spending when I went shopping at Sephora. It wasn't just me going on a shopping spree. I was like acquiring fodder for the mill of the channel, basically getting the materials to make this video. Just to be clear, this, I had no idea this existed. The Topicals Active Scar Primer, sealed. Instantly fill in and smooth indented acne scars and large pores for a primed, soft matte finish. With daily use, scar depth is reduced. I don't know about that, but this basically claims to be like a spackle that fills pitted scars on the face, which I do have. I know it's hard to see with this beauty lighting, and I don't have the deepest of, cystic acne pits, but I do have texture on the sides of my face that's just permanent, because it's from acne scarring on the sides of my face. This says it has peptides, retinol, medical grade silicone, and papain. Papain. P-A-P-A-I-N. Is that a French word, or is it something I should know about? Or both? Anyway, the question I have about this, so what it says is dab a small amount into pitted scars or enlarged pores. So it's basically just a texture smoothing primer, right? It says that it is a really intense pore filling, texture smoothing primer. Like it's going to fill pores, fill scars, and smooth over and apply a smooth surface for makeup to go on top of. And when I saw that, I was just like, how could it possibly not pill? Like, how on earth could this really be a thing? And I was standing there in the store looking at it, kind of like with this expression on my face. I was like looking at it like, and someone was like, "Can I help you?" Like a woman, a Sephora employee came up and was like, "Do you need something?" I was like, "No." But then I realized that this is the kind of thing, if it had just been me shopping for myself, I wouldn't have bought it. I would have been like, "That's weird. Maybe someone on the internet will review it." But then in that moment, I was like, "Oh, that's your job. That's me." And the interest, the draw was enough. And the question, like, how could it possibly be something that sets down enough to create a smooth surface like that, but then not pill when you put other things on top of it? Like, how could that possibly exist? The question was poignant enough that I was like, oh, I'll just get it and try it on camera. It's exactly what we're here to do. Dab a small amount onto pitted scars or enlarged pores. Let the product set for 30 seconds, then follow with sunscreen, moisturizer, and makeup. I had like some green color corrector and a little bit of that Merit stuff on my face, but I think it's pretty much worn away. I don't think it's going to cause trouble. I need like a close-up mirror. Okay. Dab a little bit so I do have pretty large pores under my eyes, and then I have this scarring on the sides of my face. I'm sort of scared of it. So it's a clear product that's supposed to just set onto the skin and become one with the skin. It's like the most difficult thing to visually review on camera, especially at this distance, like with this lighting, All I can really do is tell you how it's going. I put it on this half of my face, under my eyes, and on the sides, and I also put it on my nose. And it is blurring, right? It's blurring the texture there for sure. It's blurred the pores on my nose. It's sort of deflecting light. It has given my skin that kind of seamless look of Benefit Professional, that kind of thing. So it does do that, right? It does fill and blur. It feels a little tight, the places where it is too, which kind of makes sense. I don't know if you can see a difference visually. This is the side it's on. Maybe. It might look a little bit airbrushed, like the whole cheek area looks a little bit weirdly smooth, like doll skin compared to this side. Maybe. It's a little hard to tell if I'm just imagining it. I think that putting makeup on top is what will really show if it's done anything. And that also will answer the question, which I feel like is the most important question, which is, does it pill? I'm going to put it on the other side too, and then put makeup on. Okay, interesting. As I was pressing it into the pores, and it really does need to be pressed in because I tried to swipe it on, like rub it in, and then it did start pilling a little bit, but then those pills were easily re-squashed and just pressed in. But clearly pressing it into the skin is the application method. So it's pressing it into the skin and my pores underneath my eye on this side. And as I was watching the pores sort of blur, I was like, well, you would think that this would also work for fine lines, right? You would think the same theory would hold. It would fill fine lines and blur them. So I went and pressed it into like my deepest crow's foot, extending from this eye, and literally watched it disappear before my eyes. It was like I was smoothing a wrinkle in Play-Doh, pressing it, and it was just gone. So I did it on the other side too, and those lines are like, at least right now, you totally can't see them. And I also pressed them into the fine lines on my forehead too. That was pretty thrilling to just sort of physically airbrush those fine lines away. But it won't mean anything if it pills. And the other thing is I just hate that kind of thing. Like goop that you press into your wrinkles to fill them in, to make them disappear as if you're like spackling over. It's like, how can that possibly work? Your face is moving, your skin is alive. Like how can a thing like that really look good, especially as the day wears on? So I got some concealers, and this is a great example of like a thing that would only happen in person. This is old news. This isn't new makeup. It's the Tower 28 concealers. And I remember everyone being really into them like 2 years ago. Like when they first launched, it was a big deal. They're still out there selling concealer, like being some people's favorite concealer probably, but it's just really, really out of the limelight in the world of makeup. But it was kind of front and center in Sephora. And I was like, oh, I never tried those because I remember testing them in store and being like, oh, the lightest shade is way too yellow and the next one down is way too dark. But I've gotten a little bit more relaxed about that these days, especially because the Refi concealer, which I wanted to replace, I was there to replace it. They didn't even have it. They didn't even carry it in the store. It's kind of too bright and yellow for me, but I've been finding a way to make it balance. And I've been into mixing colors a lot since I had that experience with the Natasha Denona, mixing the lightest 2 shades together and getting a perfect shade. So I was like, well, let me see if the lightest shade, which is too bright and too yellow, and then the next darkest shade, which is more neutral but too dark, mixing them together could work. I'm a little more open-minded. I was really drawn to the Gucci concealer. The Gucci concealer is so beautiful, but I swatched it. The lightest shade is like really pink, sort of this watery pink that I thought I might be able to make work, but it's also really expensive. And even though it's the business's money, like the budget, I have a finite budget for what I could review. So if I had gotten that Gucci concealer, it would have been like just a couple other little things in it, and I wouldn't have been able to spread it around as much as I did. So instead I went for 2 shades of the Tower 28, which together cost less than one Gucci concealer would have cost. I can feel my skin feel a little tight from where that primer is setting. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. Apply this concealer. Should I do it the way that I normally would with a brush and just go for it and see if it holds up, see if it pills? I'm like applying this on top of a fake skin created by the Topicals primer. Okay, so it doesn't seem to be pilling. I put a couple of dabs of the lightest shade of the Tower 28 concealer under my eye, and then I mixed the 2 shades on my cheek, and it looks fine, right? The skin looks fine. A little dry. It looks and feels a little dry, a little tight because of the primer. But the main thing I'm noticing is that the 2 deeper hits on my cheek, which I don't know if you'll be able to see, they're just not exactly filled in. It didn't really work. And I totally did press it in right there. And it's just, you can still see them. You can still see that my skin is 3-dimensional there, that there are like divots in my skin. Up close, when I changed the angle of my face so that the light hits it from one side, the product didn't blur. It didn't fill in those gaps the way that it sort of promised to do. I bet with this that if you have really craggy, sort of uneven skin, there's a lot of texture because of acne, like bumps and crevices, and you are looking for a primer to do some smoothing and diffusing of that texture, I bet it does help with that. I bet that for people who really struggle with that kind of texture, I bet that makeup looks better on top of this product than it does on top of other kinds of primers, especially illuminating primers. But if we're just filling in like some pores and one conspicuous deep divot, which is kind of what I have, like 1 or 2 conspicuous deep divots on otherwise pretty smooth skin, it's not some sort of magic scar filler, like weird cosmeceutical scar filler. It's not really. I think it has taken care of some fine lines. It has sort of diffused some fine lines, but I don't know. I don't think it's worth it. It's not worth it for me, the trade-off, which is the tight feeling, kind of dry looking skin, just getting the other side caught up with the same makeup. As for the Tower 28 concealer, my first instinct is to say that it feels quite dry for a serum concealer. It's marketed as a serum. The consistency is a little bit watery. I guess the consistency merits the claim that it's a serum concealer, but it's spreading out a little bit more like a traditional concealer. However, that could very well be the dry silicone-y surface of my skin. You know what I mean? That could be because of what I'm layering it on top of. So I think the jury's still out on that one. The amount of pigment is similar to the amount of pigment in the Refi concealer. I could see using this Tower 28 concealer sort of all over the skin, almost as a skin tint. Skin tint with a little bit more stick-to-itiveness, which is something that I love. The color, it's fine. It turned out to be fine. The mix of those 2 colors is perfectly fine. I'm going to keep playing with it. I'll be curious to see if on top of different skin prep, different primer, it still gives me that, basically that impression of being dry. Like it's watery when it goes on, and then when I start to blend it out, it's almost like the water evaporates and I'm left behind with a little bit of stiff pigment that's semi-sheer. It built pretty well though. I was kind of able to cover some of these scars with dabbing in some extra layers. Yeah, easy to work with. pretty skin-like. I can totally see why people were obsessed with it when it first launched. Okay, now for some thrills. Well, actually, I'm going to show you one random other thing that I got. My skin's been really dry even before Sealed was placed upon it. My skin's been really dry. So I got this kind of test size of what is a very expensive skincare mask. It's a Superberry Hydrate and Glow Dream Mask, a hydrating overnight mask from Youth to the People. Even the mini is pretty expensive. It's like $18, but I didn't want to buy the like $60 one without first seeing if I really like it. So I got that basically just to see if I want to get a larger one. I kind of realized when I did that video recently about reviewing a bunch of skincare, I just like reviewed all the skincare that I happened to try recently, that I don't really have what I really, really want. I've just been using the skincare that's come in PR that suits me the best, but there are kind of holes in the skincare, especially when it comes to a really thick, occlusive sleeping mask, a really nourishing final step in the routine, morning and night. I was like, I need to kind of do my own research and try to get what I really want. And so this is my first step down that path. Although I'll probably end up going for something a little less pricey in the long run. Like I was thinking of going back to that Derma E overnight cream with the red lid. That's like $10 or something. Do you remember that? I'll try. If I can find that, I'll link it. Okay, so I was in Sephora. I was like, oh, weird skin stuff. Concealer that used to be popular and no one's ever talked about in 2 years. Let's try that. And then I was tootling along, and I was drawn like a moth to a flame to the NARS display. The NARS display, my friends. And NARS, it's like, I don't know her anymore, right? I used to be such a NARS girl. I've talked about it so many times in New Makeup Hot Takes. And then NARS is out here releasing like this orgasm collection after orgasm collection. It's the same thing after the same thing. And I kind of checked out. It was like a slow roll of me like pulling back 1 inch at a time from my former very close relationship with NARS. And then nobody really noticed when we cut ties entirely. It's just I floated away. We grew apart. And I haven't even mentioned NARS and New Makeup Hot Takes in months. But in Sephora, surrounded by the displays of all these makeup brands, NARS still really has power to me. The power of like color intrigue, even though they've moved away from color intrigue and that's the issue. Like that's why we've cut ties. That's why we broke up. But just the blushes, the pans, the packaging, and now the lipstick. So the first thing that got me was this lipstick display, a new, I don't know how new, right? New to me, and it could be any time in the past 5 years. A new NARS lipstick, Explicit lipstick. And look at this color. The packaging's nothing to sneeze at either. Bewitched Explicit lipstick. I almost didn't get it. Wow. I almost didn't get it because the display said full pigment with just one swipe. It's like a full pigment lipstick. But I got a little tester doe foot. I put it on my hand and it really felt very melty. Like it felt like it just like melted into almost like an oil, it felt very thin and melty. And it was very easy to buff out and blot down on my hand without it getting patchy, which with a dark color like this, it doesn't always happen. Like, I hate to say it, but like the Lisa Eldridge lipsticks, it's hard for me to get that kind of blotted look without them going patchy, the dark colors. But what I want is the blotted version of this color, because when I blotted it on my hand, I was like, that's the color. Like, that's my dream. So let's see if we can get it. I'm going to remove this lip mask. Let's see what we can get it to do. Oh, I guess I should swatch it on my hand first. Yeah. Okay. So it's a dark color, right? It's shaping up to be quite vampy on me, but I wonder if I can blot this down. And yeah, it feels really melty and creamy on my hand. Okay, so the first question is like, is this color going to hold its own and not get patchy on my dry, almost 40-year-old lips and on my pale skin, And yeah, the application's flawless. It's beautiful. The color, it has kind of a clear, watery quality. Obviously, it's rich and strong and deep, but the way it's applying, it's almost like serum-y, like a stick serum, but without the slidiness and sort of impermanence that we associate with the idea of serum makeup. I mean, it's clearly present. It's present and accounted for on the lips. It's so wearable. It feels like it's really becoming one with my lips. The color feels really wearable for me, even at this. This is like one swipe pigment, but it's pretty full pigment, not blotted, not buffed away at all. I actually love the color. I don't know when the last time was that I had a color quite like this on. There's enough red in it, some kind of color for it to feel aligned, not to be a quite grungy kind of statement color, but to really feel inherent to the body somehow. But it's also edgy because it's so vampy on me. I can't stop looking at it. I'm trying to talk in a fluid sentence, and instead I keep stopping to be like, wow, unexpected. I almost didn't get this because it's $40. $40, my friends. And this is the kind of thing I never, ever would have bought online. This is the value of going in person, right? I never. But in person, I could kind of tell there was something that it might work. And I was like, okay, wow, I'm so glad. I'm loath to even blot it. I felt like there was something else I was going to say about the application, though. Can't remember what it was. I'm loath to even blot it, but I'm going to do it. Gosh. Here we are. Okay, this to me is like the dream lip. The dream lip. It's got all of the qualities of the vampy version of itself. It's really My Lips But Better, really effortless. It's got that kind of sensual, wind-whipped, semi-chapped lips from walking on the moors kind of thing, you know? I feel like, I'm using this lip brush. It's a BK209. I mean, just a brush. I don't know what it's supposed to be for, but I feel like I've been using it just to sort of touch up, soften. I feel like if I used a brush instead of going straight in, I could get this level of pigment, this light of an application on the first go without having to apply and then blot. So the only strike against it is that it's a little bit effortful compared to what I have been wearing, which is like tinted lip balms in roughly this color that I just pile on, and then they look not like this though. They don't look this, I don't know, like editorially, like a cross between makeup and your own skin, or like, is it even there? Like some sort of photo shoot with dried rose petals and tea in a tea room or something like that. Yeah, a lip balm can't look like this, you know, but it takes a little more work than a lip balm takes. I just feel like it would endure through the drinking of some matcha, and that's exciting. It's impressive. Okay. Gosh, this is me now. I wish I could stop here, but I'm excited to show you the last thing I got. Who even am I? Okay, I was over at the NARS counter. I was like, or the NARS, you know what I mean, the NARS display in Sephora. I was like, am I going to do it? Am I going to get this lipstick? And then I was like, I'm going to do it. And then I thought I was done. And then I saw this seasonal eyeshadow palette from NARS. The last thing you would think I would ever want, because it's always just the same peachy pinks and they often do like warm tone stuff, like orangey eyeshadow. And I'm not even that into this packaging. That's the thing. Usually the packaging is what gets me. It plucks on the heartstrings of my past relationship with makeup, the NARS packaging. I'm not even that into this. It's kind of hard to open. It's really hard to open. Oh my gosh, I fear for my nails. Okay. But I decided, so this again is the classic example of something I would never buy online, because this is what the pictures look like when you see it online. It just doesn't look like anything to write home about at all. Not in the least. Even up close, it's like, NARS, what are you doing? Snoresville. But in the store, I saw it and I was like, what's going on with that shade in the middle of the top? And I walked over and I touched it, my friends, with my finger. And what I found was this. Basically, the shine of Urban Decay Space Cowgirl, or Space Cowboy? Is it Space Cowboy? That Urban Decay shadow that has the Vaseline shine, but that has an unfortunate blue flip that I don't always love. That kind of a shine, but with like a taupe. It's just so wonderfully taupey neutral. And I saw that and I was like, that is all I want on my eyelids forevermore ever. And then I touched this shade next to it and look at that. It's the same brilliance, but it's like blinding ivory glimmer. And I remembered that the thing about NARS, when I like revisited NARS in a video, was that I felt that the formulas were really giving me exactly what I want. Case in point, kind of this lip, right? I just remember being like, they are nailing it with the formulas. I am their target customer with formula. I loved those formulas more than almost anything I had tried like that year, but the colors were such letdowns. There was nothing for me in the color department, nothing grungy, nothing original, nothing that was really plucking my heartstrings, right? But here we have colors and textures that I crave. I didn't swatch any of the others in the store. Those top two were enough to convince me, but I'm curious about this one. Yeah, just what I thought. So it's less of a topper. It's more of just a metallic, but perfect color. And this one in the center looks a lot like the Urban Decay shadow that has the blue flip. Yeah, it's exactly what it is. And it's interesting. I pulled out my Pat McGrath Midnight Sun palette the other day to put some shiny eyeshadow all over my lids. And I loved the look, but I was like, this palette's kind of big. I was like, I wish I had something smaller with the similarly desirable, like really shiny, neutral, one and done lid shade in it that I could more easily carry around. And when I saw this in the Sephora store and I swatched those two shades, I was like, this could be it. All right, let's just try. I'm going to put it on my lids. Okay, slight disappointment. This center top shade, the one that felt when I swatched it in store, I thought was so grungy. It's a little orange, the undertone. I think there's a base shadow in there that's a little bit orange that you can't really see when you swatch it because it's the shine, the silver taupey shine that stands out. And then I tapped that all over my eyelid there, and you know, my green undertone skin makes everything look super orange. But that to me is an orange eyeshadow and I'm not here for it. I'm going to get the other side caught up with the same application. On most people, it wouldn't look bad. And also if you like orange, it's not bad. I just don't love that color on myself. I wish that it were more gray, more brown, more bronze. Yeah, I think what's going on is that I love the color of the reflect, but I don't like as much the color of the eyeshadow in which that reflect is embedded that's only coming out now that it's applied to my lids. I do like the kind of fleshiness of the shade a little bit. It's almost like carrot juice stained, or my sister-in-law once drank too much carrot soup. Like she drank it every night for months on end. She started turning a little bit orange. Like her skin started turning orange. There is this like earthy bodily quality that I like in it. In the abstract. I just don't feel like it's my most flattering color. And I do kind of like the watery, stainy, shifting way in which it's applied to the lids. There's a lot that's beautiful about it. Sadly, I don't think I'm going to be using that color. It's like the only reason I got the palette. I don't think I'm going to really be using it, but we'll see what else I could get out of this palette. I know you all in the comments are going to be like, but it looks good. And objectively, maybe I'll get over it. It's just and I really don't feel like myself. I see it and I'm like, it's not the color I would put myself in. I'm going to put this shiny white tap it all over on top and see if it will take down the effect, the orange effect. Yeah, it did. It totally dampened it. This shiny white it's not as high voltage and wet look as the Pat McGrath, of course, because it's not like the special shade. It's a little more powdery and a little bit subtler, but it is still really easy to work with, really shiny, pretty, and a nice thing to have. It's funny, it doesn't look as good anymore, right? I took away the intensity of that orange, but the makeup objectively doesn't look as good. I think that I'm glad that the color is gone, but there was kind of something about the way that other eyeshadow shade had applied. I think what I want is to work some of this metallic taupe that's more of a true taupe just work it into the crease. I'm just going to use my fingers. Maybe I should get a brush. I'm going to just try it with my fingers and see how it goes. Yeah, that was all I needed. This is a very creamy, blendable eyeshadow that's applying beautifully, and so beautifully that I can just do it with my fingers. Okay, that might very well end up being my favorite shade in the palette because it has that, what is it? It's like that sophisticated, simple shine. You know, it's really, really lovely. And then the color is very neutral. So I could see myself using that a lot and the fluffy white topper a lot. And then sometimes finishing a look with a bit of the shade that I started out with. But if I use it on top of other shadow, the orange won't really be there, but that really pretty reflect will, I think. And maybe the one in the center that has a little blue. You know, for me, I wish that these mattes weren't red and burgundy and orchid. Like I'm not really going to, well, maybe someday for a video I might use that shade, but that's not what draws me to this palette in person. However, I feel like the mattes are kind of what people notice online, and the orchid is really that matte orchid, which I've completely ignored. I didn't even notice it was there until this moment. It's sort of the standout shade of the palette, and that's probably why the cover's pink and all of this stuff. But in person, it's not what I saw. In person, I saw this other potential and desirability and the size, the portability. I saw how it could work for me in a way that a lot of things that I've seen lately wouldn't. And it caused me to want to acquire an eyeshadow palette, which I haven't done for a really long time. So I really think that going in person, just the internet's full of lies. Online shopping, you're always just browsing fantasies, choosing against fantasies, and then buying fantasies, you know? And this is a fantasy that I would have chosen against because because this orchid matte is not a fantasy that I'm interested in. But I actually think this palette has a lot to offer me, and I'm so excited to continue playing with it. My look, though, am I not an elf? I feel like it's just because I tucked my hair like this accidentally behind my ear in an elven way. But I feel like it's elf vibes a little bit. The heavy brow, which I already had put a little bit, I dyed my brows recently, so I came on camera with them. And then this shiny lid, no blush. That's the other thing. I didn't run into any blushes I wanted to try at Sephora, so we're very pale. And then this like flushed flesh lip. I went into Sephora a woman and I came out an elf. A little bit of mascara, but I'm going to use this Charlotte Tilbury push-up lashes, which is like a burgundy red, so it'll totally go with everything. Poked myself in the eye. I think there's something too about keeping everything to my upper lids. So I'm keeping the mascara only on my upper lashes, not putting on the lower lashes. I only put the eyeshadow on my eyelid. I think it would probably perform really well smudged down on the lower lash line. I just don't feel like crossing that line. I feel like staying on this side of that line today, keeping it a little bit lighter and more wearable. And yeah, there's so much potential in a blushless look. There really is something working about the blushless look today for me. No highlight either. And this weird primer that I don't even know what I think of. Let me take a look at my skin. Yeah, it looks a little dry. It's like pores and fine lines are blurred, but at what cost? Because my skin looks a little dry, especially when I move my face around and you can like see the texture shifting, I guess. I don't know. Also, I guess I'll try it again for your sake. Like I'll continue to try it so I can report back, but it didn't make me want to try it again. I'm going to go straight back to the Rhode Glazing Milk, Ilia Skin Milk, those kinds of skin prep that are things that are really plumping and moisturizing and shining rather than like spackling and mattifying and blurring. So that didn't sweep me off my feet. The Tower 28 concealer, I bet I'll use it. I bet I'll use it until I get the replacement for the refi because it's nice, but it didn't particularly sweep me off my feet. And neither did the Ulla Henriksen, like the one thing that I knew that I wanted. I actually regret getting it. Like, I don't want it. I might give it away. I really thought I wanted it, and I don't like it. I like the original plain one way, way better. It feels like a totally different product. So none of those things swept me off my feet, but NARS coming through with a gorgeous color for the lips and some really pretty eyeshadows in the formulas that are the droids I'm looking for. Easy to apply, full of like cosmetic integrity. Like they apply, like the lip isn't getting patchy. The eyeshadow did exactly what I wanted it to, even though I was just using my fingers. You know, it's just, they do what you set out to do. They do it. They work with you, you know, and in colors that I'm excited about. So wow, wow, wow. Some surprises and a total, what's the word? Confirmation of my suspicions that there's something to be gained for me as a reviewer from going in person. So it's something that I might do from time to time. Next year, we're almost at the end of this year, my friends. I'm pretty sure that this video will post in 2024. I'm pretty sure that it will. And I hope you're all doing well, hanging in there. I really hope you're taking extra good care of yourselves so that you can be the most effective versions of yourselves as you do your work in the world. From one elf to another.